Okay, what we're doing here is we're working on a 2022 Kia Telluride. We've got a repair estimate for $400 to replace the rear brake pads on this car. And it doesn't need it. It doesn't need rotors, it just needs pads. And so we got the rear wheel off. And you only need about 3 tools for this job. You need a 14 millimeter open end wrench, a 5 millimeter, I believe, Allen key that I have on the ratchet, and a Torx bit that we'll use later. And so what we're doing now is taking off the caliper assembly with these two 14 millimeter bolts. This job took me about 14 minutes to do on each side of the vehicle, and the new pads from Amazon were about $40, arrived overnight. So yeah, easily a 30 to 45 minute job. So I'm backing out the screws by hand. I could have used an electric impact for this, but I just wanted to show how easy this job was to do with a minimal amount of tools. You can see I'm even using the jack from the car. I didn't bother using a jack stand or anything. I just, again, wanted to show how easy this was to do with a minimal amount of tools. And you can see I'm pulling the caliper off. I'm having a little bit of trouble here. It looks like I might be pulling on that electrical assembly for the e-brake, for the electric emergency brake, but I'm not actually. I'm using the housing as leverage there. Okay, so then you got to pull off these little wishbone pins. They help spread the pad apart when the brakes are not applied. Make sure you put those back on, or not back on, and reinstall the new ones. And then you can see with my thumb I'm pushing up a lever here, and I move in closer with the camera, and that lets you pull the pad out. And those are also disposable parts. We pull those out here in just a second. And then I show how thin we got that rear pad. What's interesting to note about modern vehicles compared to older vehicles is that the rear pads wear out really quick, and I think it has to do with traction control, the electronic parking brake, and I don't know, probably the adaptive speed control. I think that just the way the brake system works on these modern cars, it really wears the rear brake pads down quickly. This car has about 70,000 miles on it, mostly highway miles and some commuting miles. And so yeah, I just pulled off those outer pads there. This is the driver's side. And then I do the same thing on the inner pad, and that's the new pad holders go in there. They just snap in. They're the same for the top and the bottom. And then you just slip the pads in there. And oh yeah, so here I'm showing which pad goes on the outside and which pad goes on the inside. It does make a difference. As you can see there, the pad with the 3 dots goes on the outside, and I didn't catch the number of dots on the other side, but they go in there pretty easy to kind of fiddle around with it. Sorry I didn't move the camera around to kind of show you a better angle, but ultimately they just kind of slip in there and they hold in place. And then here goes the new wishbones. They just go into little holes there on the edge of the pad, one on the bottom, one on the top. Again, these are to help spread the pads off the rotor to prevent unnecessary wear. There we go, that's a good look at it. Okay, so then we're going to move on to retracting the piston into the caliper. And so there you can see I pointed at 2 of the, I believe they're again 5 millimeter Allen screws, that Allen head screws that you got to pull the motor off. Now there is a way you could unplug the cable from this and then reverse the voltage on the motor to electronically retract the piston into the caliper head, but I really didn't want to mess with that because I wasn't sure, you know, how fast it works or whatever. So I figured I'll just pull the motor off, and inside there is a splined attachment into the caliper, and I just use a Torx that fits in there, and we just kind of rotate it one way or the other to retract it in, and then I use a C-clamp. See there, I'm pointing out the spline, and then I take a Torx bit, and I do it by hand, but this one was kind of different. I actually ended up using the ratchet, and then I think I show how it retracts. Yeah, it retracts, and then I squeeze it with the C-clamp, and then I'm like, oh, I didn't retract it all the way. So you know, you just want to be gentle with this stuff. You don't want to force it. Yeah, here we go. Grab the ratchet handle, put it on there, and I think it was a T40, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong, or T14. I don't know. Here I'm kind of fiddling with it. Here we go. Here goes the clamp. Oh, no, here, I'll put the ratchet on there. That's funny. I guess it was too hard for me to turn by hand earlier. Again, apologies for the camera angle, but I do promise you the Torx worked perfectly. I did the passenger side earlier, and then I thought maybe I'd do a YouTube video for this because I didn't really see anything that showed the full process from the wheel, you know, off, and the retraction of the piston with the C-clamp. And I've been doing this C-clamp on for years on these front and rear calipers. Any make and model, you know, I've been doing it. Sometimes you'll have to rotate the C-clamp, not the C-clamp. Sometimes you have to rotate the piston with a special tool. I think Dodge does that. But the C-clamp thing works perfect. So here I'm kind of fiddling around. Yeah, put the ratchet back on there, and now I'm retracting it fully. And I think we take the camera over there and show that we've bottomed out. Yes, there we go. See, we bottomed out the piston all the way, and then I show you kind of where we put the Torx bit in there. Okay, and then we just reassemble the motor on there. I think I test fit to make sure I didn't twist the brake hose, you know, any wrong way, because, you know, so you got the electrical lines from the motor and then the hydraulic lines for the brake caliper, and so you want to make sure that those match back up how you took them off. Put the 5mm torque, the 5mm Allen head screws back in there. Tighten them up. They don't need to be like monkey tight. You just gotta, you know, get them in there good and snug. And then remount that caliper housing back on there, and you're basically done. You just reassemble, you know, put the two 14mm bolts back in there, and put the wheel back on, lower the jack. Well, obviously put the lug nuts back on, lower the jack, torque everything up, and you're good to go. Here again, don't super tighten these 5mm Allen head screws on this motor. It is plastic. I would consider this piece to be very fragile. And again, I don't really like unplugging connectors on things if I don't have to. You know, again, we're trying to do, you know, a minimal amount of work and, you know, touch the least amount of parts on this thing as possible, because while it is a 2022, it is January 2026 right now, and I just, really, it's not an old car by any means, but we just don't really want to, break anything that could be fragile in these cars. So here I'm just kind of hand threading the 14mm bolts back in, making sure everything's, kind of aligned properly by giving it a good little wiggle there. And, tightening it up with that 14mm wrench. And, yeah, that's all she wrote. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Thank you. And that's it.